Asexuality is experiencing little to no sexual attraction. So it is a spectrum. I escaped when I was 17 because of domestic violence. I think that's when I had like my own time to like, I'm not in survival mode, so I can figure myself out now. There's that space where I can just like figure out who I am. The oppression of Palestinians didn't start in 1948 when the Zionist state was established on top of their homes. It started even under British occupation.
Do you mind introducing yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Aryam Marafi. I'm a Kuwaiti refugee. I'm queer, aero-ace, a medical student, a poet, and community organizer.
Oh, a medical student?
Yeah.
That's fun.
I'm struggling. I'm trying to succeed.
But how many years is that? It's quite long, isn't it?
It's 5 years, but then I keep interrupting my studies. So I've like my year group has already graduated. So I've just been in the course for so long. That's why it's not impressive. When I say medical student, I'm like, I've been here forever.
My whole life is dedicated to this. I'm just going to be a medical student. Is there a certain type of medicine you want to get into?
I feel like it's too early. I'm really interested in mental health stuff, so I think that's cool. I like working with kids. So I was thinking pediatrics. But I feel like I don't want to limit myself. I want to do everything, if that's possible.
Yeah.
But also there's no, like, I feel like there's no gender and sexuality, like, specialty. But I would want to do something focused on that because the NHS is so LGBT-phobic.
Is there not a special, like, part of the NHS that focuses on?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
And like obviously with increasing transphobia. So I was like, I would like to dedicate my work to pissing on transphobes.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I love that.
My whole life. Okay, cute. So I want to talk about part of your intersection of your identities. I think is really interesting. Would you say you're like an activist as well, or?
Yeah, I feel like I started moving away from that because I feel like everyone uses the word activist and it doesn't mean anything anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why I prefer community organizer. But it's the same thing.
How very HR. I'm the head of community organisation. I don't like genocide.
I'm very picky with language. Yeah. So I was like, I need it to be accurate.
I love that. But I want to talk about that too. But can you explain to us, because I won't speak on your behalf, I'm very ignorant to asexuality and aromance and what the differences are and what that looks like, and I'm sure a lot of people, I don't think it's talked about enough. So
Oh yeah, fully. So asexuality is a spectrum. So first there's different types of attraction. There's sexual attraction, romantic attraction, platonic attraction. So asexuality is experiencing little to no sexual attraction. So it is a spectrum. So some people experience sexual attraction under like very specific circumstances or very rarely, and then some people just don't experience it at all.
Okay.
Obviously it's really pathologized. It's like, oh, these mentally ill people, whatever, because of compulsive heteronormativity. It's like you have to feel sexually attracted to the opposite sex and then marry them and reproduce. Otherwise you're mentally ill. Which is as like same thing with like homophobia where it comes in. It's like you are different, so you're mentally ill. I think where I fit in on the spectrum is I'm demisexual, so that means I do experience sexual attraction only after I have a very strong emotional connection with someone. So if you have the most attractive male celebrities dancing naked in front of me, it does nothing.
Okay.
But
that's strange.
No, because I feel like when I explain to people, they don't understand unless I explain that, like nothing. But I need to be like really emotionally connected to the person to feel that way. So it's only happened twice. And then I was like, oh my God, this is so interesting. Because first I didn't know I was like, that people were feeling things I wasn't feeling. So I just thought, I'm just so halal, guys, like all these harami people. I was like, because I didn't understand, like, especially in school, I was like, these kids are so horny and they're like, everyone's having sex with everyone. I was so confused. So I just thought, I'm just keeping it halal.
Yeah.
That's it. But then I realized, no, people were actually feeling things that I wasn't feeling.
Okay.
That's so interesting because I feel like I don't know how to put this without, like, this might come across offensive maybe to people listening, but I feel like I understand it if I were to put it in another perspective. Like, potentially, like, if women were, like, dancing, like, really hot, like, naked, like, I could appreciate that. I know people think that's nice and hot and
you yourself
but
don't necessarily.
Is that fair to say? Like, is it
basically. So if you guys are gay men, the way you feel about other women is the way I feel about everyone. So I remember the first time when I realized it and I was like reading about asexuality, I came out to my closest friend and I told him so I was just trying to figure out my own, like, where I fit in.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was like, I think I'm bisexual. Then he said, why do you think you're bisexual? Because I sounded like unsure. And I was like, because the way I feel about men and women is the same. He's like, how do you feel about men and women? I was like, nothing. And then he was like, that's not bisexuality.
Oh, I thought it just means I don't like anyone.
So then we were reading up on it together and I was like, oh my God, I'm asexual. So then everything made sense.
Oh, that must have been so freeing.
Oh yeah, fully.
When that's you finally figured it out,
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of people as well, even though they're like, oh, like, you're haram, you're gonna go to hell, whatever. And I'm like, I'm gonna go to hell for not feeling sexual attraction. Like, how? Where the Quran does it say you must experience sexual attraction as the criteria to go into heaven? It doesn't make sense, obviously. But then they're like, yeah, but then you could just, like, feel that way without, like, telling people. Like, but that doesn't make sense because, like, then if people weren't being open about it, I wouldn't have learned more about myself. I wouldn't have understood myself. I would have just kept thinking, I'm the most halal person and everyone is haram.
There's nothing wrong with that.
When was, like, the first time you thought, oh, the way I view different partners is different to, like, my friends group or people around me?
I think, just always. Because, again, I didn't understand people were feeling things I wasn't feeling. And also with the aromantic part. So I'm really confused about romantic attraction. I feel like I don't understand it to know if I feel it or not. So that's another thing where I was like, I'm really confused at the way other people are behaving. I never understood why, like, socially, some things are perceived to be romantic. You can't do that with your friend. That's too romantic. Or that's too platonic. It wouldn't work with a romantic partner. And to me, it's like, I didn't understand the difference.
Can you give an example?
Yeah.
Like, with one of my closest friends, I did this a few times with some close friends. It's funny. So the first time it was like my best friend, I made her a book, 100 Reasons Why I Love You.
Okay.
Like, handmade. I wrote a reason on every page. It was so cute.
Oh my God, I love this.
No, but then you see how everyone was like, that's not something you do to a friend. That's something you do for a romantic partner. I didn't understand. Then I did it to the same thing to gift it to another close friend of mine. Then everyone was like, oh my God, you're in love with him. And I was like, no, I'm not. He's like my brother. Ew. And then
no offense.
And then, like, people were not, like, understanding, which I get it. It makes sense.
I get that though, but I feel like there's, like, different kind of friendships though. I feel like some friends, I know one of my friends, like, would make a scrapbook for, oh, bless you.
Oh, bless you.
I'm so sorry. I can feel that coming.
Which, like, she'd make a scrapbook for her, like, best friends, and, like, it would be like, 10 reasons why we're together. And, like, I feel like friendships are, maybe I personally feel like from Arab sides, it's more acceptable to have friends love and, like, they're like your family as opposed to, like, English.
And there's more passion there as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, even in the language of Arabic, like, you express your love really, like, intensely. Where I feel like in the West, they're like, oh, I love you, but it's not like, I love you. Do you know what I mean? So maybe that plays into it as well.
I think that's definitely it, especially, like, with Arabic language. Like, the way we express love is so much more passionate and much deeper than in English. And I think it's really sad because some things you can't even translate to English. But I think definitely. Because, like, in Arabic, everyone is Habibi, Habibti. Then when I try to translate it to people here, it's like my love. And it's like, not in the way you think. Calm down. But still my love.
And I was going to say, like, how would you, like, explain, like, Fidetek? Because I keep trying to say that to him, like.
Fidetek, it's like, Yeah, I wouldn't know how to explain that.
That's another one.
There's
Like,
so
die
many
for
things
you.
that you
Yeah,
can't translate.
it is like I die for you, but that sounds more like, I guess, aggressive than it actually.
Than it is.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
it's more like.
You kill me, or something.
Or I think it would be also like kind of like the space was empty without you kind of thing.
Okay.
Or no, but we have another word for that. What's it? Mechanic khali, we say. It's like your space is empty. So it's like I missed you. If I'm going out to the friend, I'm like, your space was empty when
Oh,
we were
that's
going out.
cute.
Yeah.
So
I
we
like
have
that.
cute words.
Yeah.
We are cute, okay?
So cute.
We are.
So I don't know if you already explained it, but what is the difference between asexual and aromantic? It's just the romantic side of...
The romantic version of asexual. So it's like
Okay.
experiencing little to no romantic attraction. But I feel like with asexual, when I explain it to people, like they might kind of understand it. But with aromanticism, I mean, I feel like I don't know how to explain it well enough so that other people, I feel like I'm still confused about it myself. But like I know it's there.
Okay,
I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
So I feel like when I try to explain it to people, everyone is confused. And I was like, it's okay.
Like
don't
maybe
have
you
to
don't
understand.
see like the romantic gesture as it's intended. You know, like how some people find a joke funny and some people don't find it funny.
Yeah.
I feel like a romantic gesture might be like if someone was to be like, let's go out, just me and you for dinner, and stare into each other's eyes and have flowers, and you're just a bit like, that's weird. Like, why would I want to do that? Like, it might be something like that. Maybe. Did you come out like so? Your history, like, were you born in Kuwait and you lived there for a long time? Like, is that when you were coming out as well? When you were there?
No. So I moved to the UK with my family when I was 11.
Okay.
And then I think in Kuwait and here, like, I think sexuality never crossed my mind because, again, I didn't know people were feeling things I wasn't feeling. So I was just confused. Like, my parents always thought, like, I was obsessed with boys. And I was like, ew. Like, I didn't understand why they kept thinking that. So it's like, so I'm a nerd. So I'd go to the library or something. And then my mom would be like, I know. She didn't tell me. She was telling, like, my siblings and my dad. She's like, I'm so suspicious of Aryam. She goes to the library just to meet men. Why else does she keep going to the library? I'm like, because
To
there's
read.
books. Yeah.
So many cool
That's the only reason I go.
Oh, that's so funny.
So I think now it's really funny, especially when I'm like, oh my God, all these things that I didn't understand why my parents thought it was like suspicious or whatever. And it's like, I was just being asexual. And then they just kept thinking Aryam wants to hook up with guys. And they didn't know. So I feel like, so I came out like online publicly, but that's after I cut contact with my parents.
Okay.
So I escaped when I was 17 because of domestic violence. And then I think that's when I had like my own time to like, I'm not in survival mode, so I can figure myself out now. There's that space where I can just like figure out who I am outside of who my family want me to be or who they expected me to be. My dad is a diplomat. He was working at the Kuwaiti embassy. So then that's why we moved here. And then, again, that's a huge privilege. That's the only way I was able to escape is because I've been saving since I was 13. I was like, these people are crazy. I was like, I need to leave. So like, I really like, I don't do things impulsively. I long-term plan.
Okay.
So this is like one of my longest term planning was like how to escape these people.
Okay.
So it's like, so then I was, again, obviously because my family's rich, so I would just like, every time they gave me money or something, I was saving it. So then I would leave. And then also, again, alhamdulillah, huge privilege. I got a scholarship from Kuwait to study medicine. Then I was like, as soon as the scholarship money hit, like it was in my bank account. And then literally like 1 or 2 days later, boom, I left. And then, because I feel like when I do talk about this, I do want to emphasize the privilege because I feel like one of the biggest reasons people are not able to leave their abusers is for financial reasons. And again, I was so young when I left. So it wasn't because of a lack of privilege. My privilege is what helped me leave, definitely.
Okay.
When did you realize that you were different to your family that made you want to leave them? Like, at what point? Because obviously, like, it's not, I guess, usual for someone in Kuwait to potentially think the way you do. Maybe, like, where did that come from?
I think it's more common than people think, though.
Okay.
Like, I've met so many Kuwaiti runaway girls, unfortunately, not just Kuwaiti, like Khaliji, because we still have male guardianship laws in the Khalij. So I think that's a big part of it is if you're AFAB, you have no independence or right to make choices in your life without your male guardian's approval. So that's a huge thing. That's one of the main reasons people leave. And then I think, I mean, I always knew since I was a kid that I didn't really fit in. Like, when I watched Matilda, I was like, oh my God, this is me. She loves reading. Everyone's pissed that she's reading. And then
she has magic.
No, I was like, oh my God, this would be so cool. Where's my magic? But then I think even I remember when I watched Matilda, and then I was like, oh my God, she gets adopted at the end. I was like, I wish that happened to me, because it's like, I knew I didn't like fit into my family. I think it was a lot of like small things. Like, since I was a kid, I was always like more religious. And I know that this always surprises people, because they're like, you're queer and you already left your family. Why do you still wear hijab? Because they think like my family forced me, and then I just kept it on. I was like, no, I started wearing it after I left. Because then I was like, this is where I can like finally be myself and reconnect with my faith. And like being Muslim is such an important part of who I am. So I wanted to like visibly show that. And I knew I wouldn't really be able to do that with my parents. So I think it really bothered them that I was religious, because like when I meet a lot of people, they assume I have religious trauma from the queerness and stuff, but it's like I feel like it didn't work on me if they tried to use religion to guilt trip me, because I would just quote Quran back at them. I was like, this doesn't work on me.
I spent time in the library, okay? I know what I'm talking about.
So I think for me it was the opposite. It wasn't like religion was being forced on me. It was like I couldn't like for example, I was the only one in my family to eat only halal food. I was the only one in my family to pray my full prayers 5 times a day. And like it used to like annoy them. Like I remember one time we went out for lunch or something. Then I was like, oh my God, I need to go home to pray Dhuhr before it's Asr Adhan. Then I was like, oh, you and your prayers. Now we all have to go home just because you want to pray. It's like, you guys could just stay out and I could go pray.
That's cool.
So I feel like that's one of the nicest things about living. It's like, oh my God, I can like again, figure stuff out for myself and understand Islam for myself outside of people trying to twist it or weaponize it to control me or other people.
That's so interesting, because I'm sure hearing your story, the view is that your family were really strict and really religious and pushing that narrative onto you, and you wanted to escape that. I feel like that's kind of the
that's
narrative.
Usually that's the stereotype, where it's like, oh, so that's what happened.
Yeah.
Poor oppressed Muslim girl.
Yeah. 100%.
Even when I first started wearing hijab, so I had already left my family and stuff. I was still in contact with my grandma. My grandma and I were really close. So then she called me because like I think I met my siblings while I was wearing my hijab. They were like, oh, you're wearing hijab. Like they were like surprised. Then my grandma called me. She's like, you started wearing hijab? And I was like, yeah. She got pissed and she was like like lovingly, but she was like, oh my God, Allah yahdik, you're so stubborn, take it off now. I was like, why? And she's hijab too, but like her main concern was like, you're so young and you're living in the West and people are crazy and they hate Muslims and stuff. And I was like, who cares? Like like it's not for them, it's for me. That's the whole point. I think that's what people miss when it comes to religion especially.
Yeah, and I think that's what you said, like being Muslim is important and you want to show that. I think that's quite beautiful. Like that makes sense to me. But it just seems like the hijab is such a symbol of, it's almost like political.
I do see it as fully political. That's why as well I see it as like I'm fighting against what Western society thinks women should and shouldn't do, what we should and shouldn't do with our bodies. Also, there's this really beautiful Frantz Fanon quote. I started wearing niqab part-time. Like the haram police are gonna like jump on that. But I wear it sometimes and I really love it. And I first started wearing it when it was for a poetry event at a cabaret, and it was an asexual cabaret, the A Show. Shout out to the A Show, it's amazing. But anyway, I decided I wanted to wear niqab when I performed because I read this Frantz Fanon quote. It's so beautiful. The woman who sees without being seen frustrates the colonizer. It becomes the colonialist's frenzy to unveil this woman. So that was so beautiful. And I was like, that's so true, reading about like the history, like even in Iran today, obviously hijab is forced. Obviously I'm against that. Just because I cover doesn't mean I think everyone else should be forced to do the same thing. It's about bodily autonomy. And but even if you look like in the days of the Shah, before the Islamic regime currently in Iran, the Shah actually made hijab illegal, and then women protested by wearing hijab to the protest, because it was again a fight for bodily autonomy. So it's so different from the way it is today. And the same thing, like Frantz Fanon wrote that about Algeria when it was colonized by France, and they were living under French occupation, and the French really wanted women to move away from Islamic, North African cultural and religious clothing into something more Western and acceptable. Because again, it's this idea of like, I'm going to remove or distance you from the rest of your society to make you fit into what I want, what I think is acceptable. So, like when I read that quote, it was so beautiful, because I was like, that's so true, because it really does piss off colonizers so much.
Yeah, it's such a talking point over here, and I don't know why everyone's so involved in it. It's weird.
Because again, it all comes down to bodily autonomy. Like every time, like it's the one thing that like Islamophobes, non-Muslim Islamophobes, and Muslim queerphobes agree on is take off your hijab. That's the only thing they agree on.
Wait, say that again. Say that again. So non-Muslim Islamophobes and
Muslim queerphobes. Just like take off your hijab.
Yeah.
So one side they're like, you're not a real Muslim. The other side they're like, I need to save you, or like this isn't tolerated in the West.
Syndrome, 100%.
Oh my god, that's so funny. I love the way you put that.
I know. My brain's just like exploded.
Because what there's so much that I feel like is important to cover, because also I feel like I have to ask questions that people will have, because I've had questions brought to me about being gay and like being Arab, or I'm not Muslim but being Arab. But I think, how does that look to you, like being Muslim and your religion being important, but being queer, and then I suppose almost like surrounded by the queer community and the LGBT community? Like, how does that work? How do you balance them?
I think my community, the queer people I'm surrounded by, are mostly Muslim. So first, there's no that's not contradictory. There's no such thing as reconciling Islam with my queerness, because there's nothing to reconcile. This is how Allah has created me. And in accepting that this is the way God created me, this is the way God intended for me to live, I feel like that's brought me closer to Islam, because it's helped me to understand like God created us all differently, and we're stronger by learning to understand each other's differences. And I actually think it's more haram to bully someone for something they didn't choose. Like, something you don't choose is not a sin. I didn't choose to be ace. First, okay, even if I did choose it, like, it just doesn't make sense for people to be mad at someone being asexual. But anyway, like, no one chooses to be gay. No one chooses to be trans. So again, this is the way God has created us, and that's so sacred. Our creation is so sacred. So in order to honor God and the way we've been created, we have to accept, that doesn't mean you have to come out publicly, but within ourselves we have to accept that this is the way I am, and that's okay. I love the way God created me. And I feel like that's really important for people to understand. So I think thankfully with my little like queer Muslim community, it's been really nice to like talk about Islam and practice with each other in a way where it's not like limited or controlled by culture, because I feel like a lot of what like haram police regurgitates online is influenced by culture, and it's like they don't even have like verses to back up what they're saying. And again, it's like what I said with my parents, like, if you're gonna throw a verse at me, I'm gonna throw 10 back at you. Like, it doesn't work. So it's like I just find that interesting, because I feel like a lot of people, they see religion, and a lot of it is because of religious trauma. I'm not blaming people, I'm blaming like the mullahs and the system that forced this on people, that made them hate religion so much, because it was used to control people. It wasn't used to like, the way people see religion is about control. It's about what you can and can't do, instead of thinking, how can I be a better person? How can I feel closer to God? And I feel like that's where like my focus is, because at the end of the day, like the point of religion is be a good person, you go to heaven. So anything else that contradicts that is anti-Islamic. You can't be like a horrible, evil person and bully people, then just be like,
I'm a great Muslim.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
I know, but I think it's such a good, it's such a big topic. I feel like by Muslims and by people who view Islam outside, like they will just see it as a control thing, as the way it's been portrayed. And so I think,
but for some people, even within the Muslim community, it fully is for some people.
a control thing.
Okay. Which is like, it's so, I feel like it's so sad to see, because I really can't relate to that. And I feel like, alhamdulillah, I had like my own journey with my faith, but because I can't relate to that at all. But I definitely think this is something that we need to address. Islamophobia, obviously, outside of the Muslim community, but also within the Muslim community, we need to challenge ourselves and the way we practice.
I can't remember, there was a thing on like the BBC like debate about like is Islam a peaceful religion, and they're arguing like back and forth to it.
But that's the thing, we don't have to be, when they talk about peace, especially when it's from the colonizer's mouth, it's always how much are these people willing to submit to the oppression we perpetrate against them. So they don't want peace, they want us to submit to how we're oppressed. So that's not peace. Their oppression is inherently violent. Colonialism is inherently violent. Occupation is inherently violent. So there's no such thing as peacefully resisting that.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm really done with the is Islam a peaceful religion debate, because I feel like it's not only is it irrelevant, I don't want to be a peaceful person. Like if I'm being oppressed, I will defend myself by any means necessary. If I'm being colonized people have a right to resist by any means necessary. So we shouldn't have to be peaceful in the face of oppression. That doesn't mean we go up and beat up everyone every time we have an argument or disagreement with them. It's very different, obviously. But I'm talking about like systemic oppression.
Talk about systemic oppression. I think that leads quite nicely on to where you've been quite vocal on Instagram, and I think it's something that you're quite passionate about is Israel and Palestine conflict, where
not conflict, genocide and
occupation. But speak about it.
I think it was so disappointing and hurtful. October 2023, when I found out, like I was like, oh my god, I've been surrounded by so many racist and Islamophobic people who were like people who didn't realize they were racist or Islamophobic, but they still had these like, Israel has a right to defend itself from terrorism mentality. It's
these kind of events do bring that out, and it makes you realize in your group, you're like, oh, I never expected. 100%.
It's like you're actually not my friend. You don't care about my liberation. At the end of the day, you're okay with seeing me oppressed because it makes you feel comfortable to avoid challenging your own biases.
Or challenging what you hear. I think that the thing that shocked me was people get their news from the news and they just took it as that's it.
I grew up, my school here, like we had Israeli friends and stuff at school, and I didn't know anything about like the Zionist occupation and stuff because we didn't talk about this at home. And like my friends were chill with like, oh yeah, the Israeli kid at school's like, they never told us anything. The only thing my dad said about Palestine, which I remember, he was like, when we were invaded, the Palestinians supported our invasion. So he kind of like tried to teach us that like basically he's only ever said that about Palestine.
They supported
but it wasn't the Palestinian people. But it was I think Yasser al-Arafat, who was like kind of supporting Saddam. He tried to build relations with Saddam even after Saddam invaded us. But that obviously solidarity is not transactional. That doesn't mean I'm gonna abandon Palestinian liberation.
And also it's political. It's not the people. Like,
obviously,
there's layers. I get that.
But that's what I mean. Like, sorry, that was very long. But basically, like me growing up in that environment, and I still have the time to educate myself and learn about it. It's so I don't understand. It's not an excuse for people to say, oh, I just like didn't know, especially when you are able to, especially if you're privileged, you have the time and resources to read about this and educate yourself. It's not an excuse, especially from queer people now. Like now we're into the accelerated genocide, like 2 years. So you guys need to catch up.
Get on with it,
If you're still thinking like, I can't support these people unless they become the perfect victims, unless they kind of meet a set of criteria to be worthy of liberation, then you're just racist.
Yeah.
That's not
100%.
Yeah.
But what's actually really good to know is like you almost as an Arab had to fight hard to learn about that. So if you can do that going against your family and potentially causing friction, most people in England have more of a freedom as children to do what they like from their parents. It's not quite as strict. I have to do this for my parent. I have to. So they have even more freedom in their families and household to learn about these things. So if you can do it, they can do it too. So I don't.
Anyone can do it. Like at this point, because it's this is very publicized. Like you can see videos of what's, and it's not like that's another thing. Like it's not like you can pretend not to know at this point.
Yeah.
Like the Zionist soldiers are filming themselves committing war crimes. They're bragging about it.
Yeah, and I think that it's an important thing to talk about. And I'm not sure if people know how to help or what to do to help. How would you? Do you have any advice on that? If someone, is learning about it but doesn't know what to do from that point onwards?
I think something really important that people are afraid of is literally just voicing their opposition to what's happening, because people are afraid. Obviously again, there's the layers of privilege come into account, because someone who knows they're financially stable they have more privilege, so they have a greater responsibility to speak out and say, this is wrong, I stand with Palestine, I'm against occupation, freedom from the river to the sea, not two-state BS stuff. So that's very different to someone who's like, I guess, struggling with or they're undocumented, for example, or they don't have citizenship, they can't live here or whatever for long periods of time. So the privileges people have does come into account, and I feel like your responsibility to the cause has to be proportionate to your privilege, and that's something people overlook.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, even if you're afraid of you can't risk being arrested, for example, because of your visa status, you can still send a letter to your MP.
Yeah.
You can still
sign
a petition.
I mean, we did,
fundraise.
But nothing happened. They just sent one back being like, sorry, this is what's happening.
No, obviously,
yeah. I do get what you mean.
The pressure is still important.
Yeah.
Everyone can boycott.
Yeah.
And again, there's still, you can't boycott everything, especially if you're not financially privileged.
Yeah.
But there's always stuff we can let go of. We can always consume less. We can always be more picky about where to buy essentials from. So I think people really overlook that. I think boycotting is so powerful. That's the only reason apartheid in South Africa fell, was because of the mass boycott. Because it became too expensive for them to continue the system of apartheid. It wasn't because they finally grew a moral conscience.
Yeah. So do you believe that the only solution in that situation is, because you said a split state is BS. So do you believe the only solution is Palestine to be Palestine fully?
The only reason the Zionist entity exists is because the British gave away land that wasn't theirs. They're not a real estate agency.
Standard.
Classic.
Bit of a history there.
No, they had no right to give away land that wasn't theirs. And the oppression of Palestinians didn't start in 1948 when the Zionist state was established on top of their homes, on top of their burnt villages. It started even under British occupation, where that was a lot of when the kufiya became a symbol of resistance. Working class Palestinians wore kufiyas to hide their faces, to protect themselves from state surveillance when they were protesting against the British occupation. So there's a long history of this, and we can learn so much from Palestinians. And we shouldn't be ashamed of supporting armed resistance, for example, because it's part of the Thawabit. I don't know if any viewers or if you guys have read the Thawabit. Yeah. The Thawabit are the constants, these are the key things we have to all agree on to support Palestinian liberation. And this has been written decades ago, and it's still relevant. And one of them is support for armed resistance. And there's no such thing as peacefully talking your way out of occupation. Palestinians have tried peaceful methods of resistance. They've tried protesting. In 2018, they did the Great March of Return. I think it was in Gaza. And the Zionist soldiers killed them. They massacred them. We tried boycotting, and they accused us of anti-Semitism. So anything peaceful, non-violent you do is still criticized and condemned because they don't care about non-violence. They care about suppressing all forms of opposition. The only thing you can do is lay down and die. And then you're the good victim. Like, I feel like occupation or state oppression is like a much bigger form of domestic violence. So it is victim blaming. It's the abuser telling the victim, oh, but you are wearing this, so that's why you were sexually assaulted. So he had a gun, so that's why I killed him. It's like, he has a gun because you're stealing his land, because you're killing his family, because you're taking his home. And again, that's like another thing. Like, I really realized this when October 7 happened, is I remember getting really emotional. I started crying because there was this argument on, like, the group chat I was on. The one white girl on the group chat was saying that, like, we're all wrong and about Palestine. And it's like, you're the only white girl here. Everyone else is Muslim POC. We've all been colonized except you. I think you should be listening to us. And everyone was sharing stories about when my family was living under occupation, when my people were colonized. And then I got so emotional, I just started crying. Oh my God, she's so stupid. Because it's like...
It's frustrating as well. Yeah.
Like when Kuwait was occupied by Iraq, and, you know, alhamdulillah, the occupation was short. It was like 9-10 months max. But my uncle was part of the armed resistance. He started and led an armed resistance group in his neighborhood in Kuwait. Because, again, the resistance in Kuwait, they did try, like, peaceful protest. The army just killed them in the streets. No photographs allowed. You can't, like, communicate with the outside world about what's happening. They tried to, like, keep it all, like, a secret. That, like, this is closed information, so no one else in the world can know what's happening. And again, the only way to free yourself from occupation is inherently violent. So the only way you can free yourself from that is with violence. I think that's I think Frantz Fanon said something like that too. It was like I love Frantz Fanon. But he did say something similar, or was it James Baldwin? Someone iconic said something similar about how occupation is violent and it can, or colonization is violent and can only be removed with equal or greater violence. And again, that's self-defense. That's not me waking up and...
But it gives them more, I feel like it gives more of an excuse because of how Israel is played out in the West, in the news and across, like, the board. It almost, like, every time there is a violent or a potential violent act from the resistance,
it's more fuel.
It's more fuel to be like, yeah, that's right, actually they are the violent people. It's like, I worry that is the image that gets portrayed, and that's pushes the narrative that Israel is the victim by them reporting on that.
They say the same thing with, like, kids who throw rocks at tanks. They get 20 years imprisonment in Zionist prisons. Because this 5-year-old kid threw a stone at the tank that was demolishing his neighborhood. Like, obviously, if I was there, I'll throw a stone at you guys too. Like, it's like, it's the bare minimum. It's instinctual that I see you causing harm, destroying my land, my community. I'm going to fight back. Exactly. And it's like, even if, like, no matter who condemns it, like, if we need to reach a point where their condemnations don't matter, it doesn't mean anything. We're not looking for their approval. We need our liberation. That we need to reach that point where we need to be comfortable with people don't like what I'm doing, or people are going to disapprove and complain. They have no moral high ground.
Yeah, that's good. That I get that. That, like, a light bulb moment of get to the point where the liberation is so much more important than what other people's opinions are. And
then at the same time, like, who's going to be complaining? Like, the British? Like, you guys colonized. You still have your colonizer museums with stolen artifacts.
Literally.
Like, you're going to complain about people wanting their homes back.
But arguably, like, Israelis probably feel that. Who cares what everyone else thinks? We're fighting for our liberation. Do you, like, I feel like it's really hard.
But their liberation... Their concept of liberation is dependent on the oppression of others.
So but they don't see that. I know.
Zionism is a supremacist ideology. It's, I'm Jewish, so I can walk down this road and you can't. I'm Jewish, so I need to have not just Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, part of Kuwait, part of like all these countries for greater Israel, because God gave it to me. I'm just better than you like that. So that's why it's not liberation. Yeah, it's no one can have freedom if it comes at the cost of oppressing other people.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And it's so interesting how the West reports on it, and also the privilege of the West. And I think obviously it stems from like racism, but the way that they view Israel and Palestine, so it's like, oh, it's over there, like we don't need to deal with it. But as soon as it comes a little bit closer to home,
like
and I think Ukraine and Russia, the way it's reported on is completely different.
They even said like, this is Europe.
This is a civilized country. Like, this shouldn't be happening.
It should happen over there with the brown people.
But that's why I think people didn't really get involved or care to know about Kuwait and Iraq, because it was two brown people fighting. It's like, that's what
like,
they
do.
Standard.
They did. Like the US and the UK supported us, but again, it's like, you guys hate Saddam more than you care about us.
Yeah,
it wasn't
exactly.
Like,
it's not because
like,
they cared.
I want you guys to be free. It was like, oh my God, I really hate Saddam. He has a powerful army. We need to find a way to destroy him.
We'll pretend we care.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But even with that, it's always about what benefits the West.
And it's interesting that the West seems to get involved in places around the world where there's like an abundance of like resources to some kind.
Yeah, or geopolitics, like military bases to look after.
You think of like Africa, the way that it's all cut up in the Congo, like it's all very strategic for like...
Even the way Africa was split up, the way it was labeled was about what resource can I extract from this part of the land. Gold Coast, like Ivory Coast, it was all about literally how can I exploit the land. Even a few weeks ago, it was on the news that in Burkina Faso, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, but the president kicked out like the French diplomats, and I was like, good for you. Like, these guys were colonizing you for so long. But then people have been pressuring Macron to leave occupied African territories, and he said, we can't leave now because they need our help to rebuild their land. It's like, you destroyed their land.
And I'd love to see what this help looks like as well. Do you know what I mean?
It's resources extraction. It's always like I mean, this is why so much of our consumption habits are so unethical. Because it's always dependent on, I will outsource slavery to another part of the world. I will I mean, that's what corporations and all these like Western countries are doing, basically.
That is it, isn't it? It's like everything we have is modern day slavery.
So we
just don't.
That's like what's happening in Congo, basically. That children are like being killed in these mines and stuff just so we can have our iPhones. I've become very strict now with everything secondhand, especially tech stuff, so you don't increase the demand for new stuff, like just making sure that we're only buying what's already in existence, so we don't have to rely more on
new stuff.
New forced labor. Slavery.
I just wanted to ask quickly, just because I feel like we kind of covered it a little bit but didn't really go through it. When you said about like leaving your family, how, I guess I'm curious how that looked like, how you did that, but also like it might be beneficial to anyone else that might be in a similar situation to know, like,
I've done a series of videos how to escape. Okay. So I actually did such a cool thing. It was like the magic trick of the century, because I was like moving stuff out slowly for months so that they wouldn't notice my stuff was disappearing. I got my flat and I was paying rent on it on the side. So
here?
Yeah.
Okay. And you were moving it from Kuwait?
No, because we were already here.
Okay.
Again, that's why if I was in Kuwait, there's no way I would have escaped, because male guardianship laws, I wouldn't even be able to rent property without people being like, where's your marriage certificate? Where's your male guardian's consent? Whatever. That's no one's going to rent to me. Single woman, child, 17 years old in Kuwait, no one's going to rent to me. Here, I just like, I found a flat. I was like, okay. And I did lie in the documents because they were like, they asked for age. I was 17, not 18. So I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I got scared. So thankfully I had an ID that didn't have my birthday, and I just made myself 1 year older, so I was 18.
Yeah.
And then I just gave this ID as like proof of ID. I was like, alhamdulillah, no one asked questions.
Yeah.
But and then my friends really helped me. I was hiding stuff at their houses. That's what I mean when I say it was like a magic trick, because my parents were shocked because they had no idea. I just texted them, be like, I'm not coming home. This was my escape. Because I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go, like, it wasn't a lie. I actually needed my documents to go to the university to do like proof of ID stuff. And that's the only way I got like my passport, birth certificate from my parents, because it's all locked. So I was like, oh my God, now I have my documents, so I can leave now.
Oh.
So I just messaged them, be like, I'm not coming home.
What was the reaction?
Yeah.
The reaction was like, let's go to the cupboards and open everything, and then everything is empty. And they're like, how did you do this?
Really?
Because I tried to be on good terms with them after, so I was trying to still talk to them. When I thought like maybe they would change, I was wrong, obviously. But I was trying to stay on good terms. And I remember my dad was like, I don't know how you did this. Like, we opened the cupboards, everything was gone. You're really good at escaping. And I was like, yeah, I've been planning it.
Oh, wow.
So like, what I did was like, okay, no. So the problem was, so because my dad was a diplomat, and rich people are always greedy. So the Kuwaiti embassy covers rent of up to, I think it's 7,500 or 8,000 pounds a month rent. So that's in addition to your salary.
Okay.
I'm gonna cover your rent.
Yeah.
So my parents had this genius idea of, if we buy a flat, they put it in like my grandma's name or something.
Yeah.
And they're gonna pretend that they need rent money for this flat, even though they own it. There's no rent.
Yeah.
There's no mortgage. They own the flat. So the embassy is covering rent, and they're just keeping it in their pockets.
Okay.
So they're scamming the government.
Oh, I thought it was like to pay the mortgage, but they already
They
bought it out.
already paid.
so
Yeah,
like,
there's
yeah,
no mortgage.
okay.
So they were just like stealing the money from the government.
Okay.
So the problem was that first, it was a 1-bed flat. This flat cost 2,000, 2,500 pounds a month max. It's a 1-bedroom flat in St. James's Park. So they put it to like the maximum amount, because again, there's no rent, so they're the landlord, so they could just lie about the amount.
Yeah.
They were keeping the money. That's the time when I say rich people are so greedy. Like, dude, you're already rich. You own multiple properties in Kuwait. You don't need to force us, family of 6, into a 1-bed flat to steal money from the government. So stupid. So I feel like that was the hardest part about leaving. It's like, we're all in each other's faces. I have no
you all
privacy.
were in 1-bedroom flat.
I have no privacy. I can't leave without you guys seeing me leaving.
Yeah, okay.
That's the hard part. They're also really paranoid because they know, like, I really wanted to leave. I kept telling them since I was a kid, like, yeah, when I leave you guys, like, it wasn't a secret.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So they put like bars on the windows, and like the door had like 4 locks. So I can't even open the door and walk out. Like, everyone would hear. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So it was like, I got like, like small shopper bags,
Yeah.
or like grocery bags and stuff. I just put like stuff in it, and every time I would see a friend, I'd give her a bag. So everyone had like bags of like stuff.
Oh, wow.
That you just like bit by bit.
Yeah, because
Okay.
I had to, because again, they would notice if
Yeah,
all my
yeah.
stuff disappeared.
At
It had
once,
to be
yeah.
slow over time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I was also smart. I'd be like, okay, so if I clear this desk out, I need to shove a bunch of stuff I don't need on the desk to not make it seem empty.
Okay.
Covering my tracks.
Yeah. That's,
So it was, I think, like, now that I think about it, I'm like, oh my God, that was really messed up as a kid to plan like that. But I'm smart, so I'm glad I did that.
And you don't have any like, like regrets now, or like,
No.
And you don't, want to talk to them anymore. And
It's
I'm
the
just wondering-
best decision I've ever made, was leaving them.
Mm.
It was the only time I could be myself. I feel like I didn't know anything about the world. I didn't know anything about like what healthy interactions with people looked like, because all I knew was the abuse.
Okay.
And then
Were they like
But-
verbally abusive?
physically and sexually. My dad was sexually abusing me. I couldn't live with these people, basically. Yeah, so it's like, it's, again, the very controlling, the sexual abuse, like, I can't, like, convince you this is wrong. You should know this is wrong.
Mm.
And again, it wasn't like a secret thing. My mom knew what he was doing to me. He was doing it in front of her. But again, with her, it was like, I remember she told me when I was 13, if my husband leaves me because of you, I'll kill you. And then I was hiding, and then she was like, come out so I can stab you. That was the first time I ran away. That's when I started saving, because I was like, if I need to leave next time, I need to make sure I leave permanently, because I was just a kid. I was 13.
Right, yeah.
So I was like, I need to make sure I can sustain myself when I leave, because like I can't make sure I'm safe living with them. And especially if my mom has, in addition to being a white supremacist, she has this weird, you're trying to steal my husband thing.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at her husband being like, why are you a pervert?
Yeah.
And again, it's not only on her, because I feel like my dad, like a few times, he did make comparisons between us, which is obviously gross. He would be like, he said something about her eyebrows are too thick, whatever. So she started getting them thinner. Then he told her, your eyebrows are so bad. Your eyebrows should look like Aryam's eyebrows. Why don't you change them to look more like Aryam? So it's, I think she saw me as like competition, as disgusting as that sounds. So I think that's when I can't reconcile with that.
Yeah.
I admire like how open you are about talking about. I think it's so important.
Yeah,
because it really can
will help so many people that are going through a similar thing that don't know what to do. You know, to see representation, exactly. I think is
it's so important. This is why I really value being transparent, and even with some stuff that I find difficult to talk about, I do want to be as open as possible with it, like publicly, because like I didn't know what was happening to me was sexual abuse, for example, until I was reading, do you know Laura Bates? She's a feminist author. She's really good. I was reading Everyday Sexism by Laura Bates, and she had put the legal definition of sexual assault. Then I was like, oh my God, so that's the word, that's what's happening to me. That's what my dad's doing to me. And I didn't have the words before that.
Right.
And then, like, feminist literature really helped me. Even just like reading about mental health and stuff really helped me, because I knew I was severely depressed, but my parents didn't want me to get. My mom was like, why do you want to speak to a therapist? What are you going to tell her? Because she was like, I'm going to tell my therapist you're abusing me and you guys are going to go to jail. That's what's going to happen. So that stuff really helped me. But then also I realized, like, when I shared my story, I didn't know anyone from Kuwait who had escaped. I thought this was just a me thing. I didn't realize the issues, the misogyny was systemic. Like, all these laws were against me. I didn't know all the laws at the time. But then when I started sharing everything publicly, and I started advocating more to change like some laws and stuff in Kuwait, and working with these like groups in Kuwait, and like talking to victims of domestic violence in Kuwait, then that's when I like found out about all these laws, because obviously I needed to do more research to help my asylum claim. And then I was like, this is like so messed up, the laws. Anyone who knew our laws would just be like, it makes sense why you don't want to live there, bro. Like, and then like I've met so many mostly women, but like even men, like so many people who've escaped Kuwait to seek asylum, almost all of them victims of domestic violence, some of them queer. And I wouldn't have been able to connect with so many people if I hadn't shared everything publicly. And that's what really helped me realize, like, this visibility is so important to help so many people who are struggling. I know in Kuwait there's also Abolish 153. They're the organization that helped legally abolish the honor killing law, alhamdulillah, recently. Wow, okay. I'm so proud of them. They're amazing. But they do a lot of work with supporting victims of domestic violence. And so there are people in Kuwait who are working to do that, but again, they're very restricted by the laws. So even though I was 20 when I applied for asylum, the legal age in Kuwait is 21. So people were telling me, you're under the legal age, so I can't help you, because I was planning on going back to Kuwait and getting my documents done. And then I was like, I'll just come back here on the student visa. But then I had no place to live other than with my family. I can't rent property by myself. I reached out to these hotlines and domestic violence organizations. They all said, we can't help you because you're under 21 legally, because I'm still a minor. My parents could just sue them for kidnapping me.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think it's an incredible story to share, and I think it's important. And even the way you talk about, sexual abuse, I think takes the shame away from it. I think that's really powerful. So I'm very grateful that you came and spoke to us
honestly,
today.
thank you so much for sharing your story.